It's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to the multi-award-winning podcast, Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy, who is, of course, our very good friend, Matthew Syed. I can't carry on this anymore. I know I should be presenting this because I did win Best New Presenter of a show that I don't even present.
I'll tell you, talk about rubbing it in. I was already upset that I didn't get even nominated for that award, despite being the presenter. You go and win it, and then you hog the opening line.
So the big
But in all
question is, why are you here?
What do I contribute to this thing?
Well, Matthew, show us what you've got. You pick it up now. I've tried. Go on, tell us what we're doing this week.
This week, we're all going to talk about getting criticised in sport, the greatest team of all time in any sport. And remember, you can use the hashtag FredSavSide, get in touch through the week and suggest future topics. But let's talk about the Radio Academy Awards. I mean, unbelievable night for this podcast.
How do you know you weren't there?
Yeah, where were you?
He was taking cash, wasn't he, for a speaking gig? You didn't fancy coming out. All this work we've put in, this was our moment.
Thing is, Stanley.
Paint a picture for what was it like on that night?
So basically, because I was there last year with 606 and luckily enough won an award. And I said to Fred, you know, you've got to come to this award. He was rehearsing for Fat Friends in London. And I phoned him in the morning and said, you ready for tonight? What time your train get there? And he went, what's it going to be like? I said, it's massive. It's at Leeds Arena. It's huge. 3,000 people, stage.
It's 2,000 when we chatted on the phone in the week.
About 2,000 or 3,000 was there. So anyway, he said, really? He said, I thought it was just going to be in an hotel.
Well, I thought that. I thought it was going to come. Do you know, like these awards things? You turn up to a dinner and you sit down and you get food you don't really want. And you're going to make small talk on a table with people you don't know. And then you get called up for something. I didn't expect the Leeds Arena. And I walked in, and there's thousands of people.
So I had to go to his house on the way. So I phoned Rachel, his wife, and said, listen, Fred wants me to pick up a suit. So she said, right, come about 2:30. Anyway, she come out with 2 shirts. One had makeup on it from, obviously, he'd not washed it from another gig he'd been on.
Just to clear up, in my profession, I wear makeup. I just clear that one up, Rob, thanks.
Yeah, so he had this suit. Then our pal had to go to the train station at 8:15. The award started at 7:30 to get him. He got changed in the back of a car. And then he walked in. Obviously, we couldn't believe you couldn't make it.
I'm sorry about that.
No, but listen, you'd have loved it, obviously. And then we didn't expect, I think none of us, the 3 awards. It was gobsmacking to put into perspective, you know, how big these awards are. That Annie Mac, who's a Radio 1 legend, you know, and I don't listen to Radio 1 that much, but I've heard of Annie Mac, and she won her first gold. A gold is first place. Gold will go home, like Andrew says. So to win 3 on one night, new presenter, best new show, and best podcast is incredible.
So I followed some of this on Twitter. You very generously phoned me as you were on the way back from the awards ceremony. I hadn't a clue that we'd won so big, and it was great to hear from you. But 2 things that struck me. One, I saw a photo of Stan in the middle, hogging the limelight, doing a total John Terry. He came on the show last week, didn't he? He was all over it. But he's done a great job. And the other one, I've heard a rumour that you got up and gave a speech, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't a very good one. I don't know where I was going.
All right, it was good.
Was it good?
Well, to be fair, Freddie, he got, you know, people love Freddie, and I went there. I think I was boring him. I didn't know where I was going with it. And then my first line was Leeds, you know, not sure many people like me. And then his line was...
Oh, I said, look at Robbie, he thinks it's just Leeds fans who don't like him. Got a nice laugh.
Brought the house down. Well done, Fred. Brought the house down.
Do you know the thing about it was, I hate any adulation. I really do. Even when I played...
Makes you uncomfortable.
It really, I love the process of playing, and I love winning. Do not get me wrong, I love winning. But once I've won, that's enough. I don't want anything else. I'm done. And turning up to the podcast with the awards was really strange because there's all these people. I really wanted to win, but then hate that going up and receiving something. Yeah. And the first time was all right. The second time on my own was a little bit embarrassing.
This is best new presenter.
Best new presenter. I'm nearly 40. And then the third time was just embarrassing. But I was so pleased because most of the time, you know, we've won things before, and I've never been that bothered, and I never tend to go for them reasons. I don't like it. But
you're a BBC Sports personality.
Yeah.
What year did you win that? 2005?
6. And I came third year before. But I'm not in. And then they read out at the Radio Awards 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. And I'm thinking, if we don't win, please don't come second or third. Because you know my thoughts on that with Olympics.
Yeah, remember that.
I don't want a pitiful clap because we've come 3rd. But I really wanted to win this for the simple reason is I actually really enjoy doing it. It's one of the things which I'm proud of what we do. I think we sit here and we talk about a whole range of things. And it was really nice.
I'm genuinely gutted I wasn't there. I love the fact that
was the one thing that was missing, to be honest with you, Matthew.
Well,
it really was.
Thanks for
And John, I'm glad
and the feedback from the audience, I think that made a big difference to the judges. Just seeing on Twitter the reviews that people leave, the dialogues we've been getting into, the emails that we've received from listeners who have been touched or moved by a particular topic that we might have done. Fred, just out of interest, on the award thing, you got the BBC Sports Personality of the Year. You've won tons of medals in cricket. You won a BAFTA in this country. You won a BAFTA equivalent in Australia. Where'd you keep them?
League of Their Own won a BAFTA, didn't it? So I'm involved in that. And then in Australia, they have the Logies, which is the equivalent of the BAFTAs. We won one of them for cricket coverage of the Big Bash. Where are they? No idea. No idea. They're in a cupboard. Well, house is packed up at the minute, so I don't know where anything is.
House is so big, it'd be difficult to locate them anyway.
I don't put anything up. To be fair, the Sports Personality Trophy has been up in the house because the kids like it, and it's quite a nice looking thing. Yeah. But as for putting medals up and trophies, no, I don't do it for the medals. I don't do it for the adulation. Just helping people.
Do you know what? For me, and this is a bizarre thing, I'm so glad we won. And this might sound a bit selfish, and it might sound a bit bigging us all up, but as a footballer, I got absolutely hammered for not winning much, right? And I don't want to talk about me as a footballer, because we know I tried hard, blah, blah, blah. But, when I remember the Euros and I was sitting next to Thierry Henry, Clarence Seedorf, and these social media, they put a picture up of
I saw that.
Of Thierry Henry,
and
on his shirt, all his trophies. It was like World Cup. It was like list down the front of his shirt. Then they had the same McLaren Seedorf list all the way down his shirt. Then it was mine. It had League Cup. And it was, listen, as much as you try and laugh her off and show a brave face, it kills you. It kills you because you're sitting with these two legends of the game. But when now as a pundit and I'm winning trophies with, my best pal and now a friend in you, Matthew, it's like I am putting out on Twitter. I am going to tell people because people can't wait to tell you how bad you are and how rubbish you are. So, and people, why has he got a job there? Or why is he working for them? It's no surprise that you keep getting asked back to do things. So I'm going to bask in the glory of winning awards for a little bit.
That's for you.
No, and I'm pleased for you as well. I'm going to be totally honest now. I think in our industry, there's a lot of jealousy. You are a very successful guy, Matthew. You write a fantastic newspaper column, and before this, I didn't really know. I heard of your name as a journalist, and Fred said, I want Matthew Syed. And, I said, okay. I went with Fred, and I think there's a lot of jealousy of you from other people. I might be completely wrong, because you're a very successful man. People don't know you. You're a lovely bloke, and I'm delighted for you as well. It shows a different side to you, and I'm being honest.
I really, really appreciate it. Can I just segue briefly? Because last week we had a pretty robust discussion on a number of different issues, and I got a text from my mum.
Your mum?
From mum.
Is she a fan of the show, your mum?
She listens to it every week. Dilys, she's Welsh.
Dilys Welsh!
Grew up near Wrexham, wonderful woman, and she said, welcome back. Listen to the podcast again.
Welcome back.
But welcome back because...
it's a new series, Rob.
Yeah, new series.
Oh, you haven't been away?
Oh, my word.
We
won an award for this rubbish.
Do Freddie and Robbie realise how many people play table tennis? They so dismiss the sport. Also, Robbie was a bit off with you about Mourinho. And how dare they insult my handsome, gorgeous boy? You should tell them of the string of beautiful girlfriends you had before Cathy.
Have you got a brother? You had a string of beautiful
by the way,
girlfriends.
I've got to tell you.
Is that it? Is that no more?
Oh, and then it goes on to say that she thinks the banter's great, but it can get a bit competitive and out of hand.
I agree. I walked away last time thinking you was out of order, Rob.
Yeah,
Because you hammered him, imagine. Imagine that you hammered him for his girlfriend and his wife and everything else. Imagine your Matthew's poor mum, Dillis, sat there listening. You're talking about her pride and joy, her son, the love of her life. She dotes on him. She looks at them dodgy pictures of him and thinks, oh, I still love him. That's our Matthew. And then you pop in and just you called him every name under the sun.
Hey, did you know the other thing is that he was saying he'd Googled my wife and that I was punching above my weight. Google worldwide. If you wrote Matthew, the highest hit was Matthew Syed wife. Number 2 was Matthew McConaughey. People were Googling Kathy all over the world.
Yeah. You're out of order, Rob. You come in, right, with that dodgy ponytail you're growing at the back.
Yeah, I know. That's dodgy.
And I'm going to have to bring this up as well, right? We've been in the gym again today, and he's turned up, and people are talking, Rob. No, people are talking. People are saying, Robbie Savage stinks. They're saying Robbie Savage is a soap dodger. We're walking at reception, and you can see him holding the noses the women when they check him in. He comes up the stairs, he walks past 50 people to get to this studio, and they go, there he is, Smelly Savage. Smelly Savage is back in the building.
I've changed my top. It was blue this morning.
You need to sharpen up.
A shower.
You don't have a shower.
I've come straight from the gym.
Exactly, I've been with you. I've had a shower. Stanley's had a shower.
You've got the same clothes on.
I've not. I've had a
You
shower.
have your own 3 weeks.
You've had a shower and a change.
You've had your same clothes on for 3 weeks.
Why don't you
Because
shower?
all your clothes are in the box.
Why don't you
You've
shower?
had that silly jumper on for 3 weeks. You had
Here's
your
a
cap
chance
on
here.
and you're in a mood.
We could get we could get you a deal with Imperial Leather at the back of this. You need to do something, Robbie. I'm doing you a favour as a friend. As a friend.
Some friend you
Stop soap dodging.
Okay.
Anyway,
topic.
Matthew,
Go on.
Can I say thank you to everybody that listened.
Yep.
Everybody that listens to this show.
It's a good job they can't smell you.
Yeah, we've been in trouble.
It's a good job it's on radio.
I want to say, I'll be the one sensible one here, because now you know what it's like for me getting hammered every week of him, right?
Just giving you what you do to Matthew. Just giving you a bit of a taste of your own medicine.
Everybody listening to this show, thank you. We try and inform, we try and be insightful, we try and have fun. It's 3 big kids really in a room chatting about life. And honestly, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it, don't we?
So say all of us.
Yeah,
well done.
Absolutely spot on.
Somebody's got to bring this show back together.
Topic number 1. Jose Mourinho criticised his team very strongly after their first league defeat of the season away to Huddersfield. He said, when you lose a match because of attitude, that's really bad. I don't even remember a friendly match when the attitude was so poor. We could have had a second goal, got a draw, but it would have been undeserved. If I was a United supporter, I'd be really disappointed because you can accept losing because the opponent had more quality, but not because the opponent had more attitude. In other words, Mourinho, he hammered his players. So the question we're going to ask now is, what is the worst criticism we have received as athletes, as sports people? How did we react? Is criticism always bad? Can it actually be a good thing? Fred?
I'm confused by this. Mourinho, what he said, are people saying he's out of order?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, like it's too tough on his players.
Really? I think...
Well, some people are saying that, right, Rob?
I think so, yeah.
If he thinks that, I think he's bob on. Yeah. You know, because for me... one thing, and even when it goes down to the kids, all the way up to professional. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Mm-hmm. Results and failures I can accept. Yep. What I cannot accept is people who don't try, who don't put 100% in, including myself. Mm-hmm. If I'd played a game and I'd lost and I'd done everything I possibly could to perform on that day and it didn't work out, I can walk home happy. Them days when you know you could have done a little bit more, you could have put a bit more work in before the game in practice, you could have done something a bit more during the game, and you look at yourself in a mirror and you're disappointed. And I think Mourinho, if he thinks that, he's the manager of Man United. He's accountable to his bosses. He's accountable to the fans, as are the players. Why should he not say that? If he feels they've let the fans down, good on you, Jose.
A lot of people say, you know, sports people, young people, they don't really want to be criticised. It can bring them down. It might upset them. I mean, I think there is a big argument now about what is and what is not acceptable in terms of critiquing people in sport and in people's professional lives and so on. What you're saying is negative criticism can galvanise. It can help you see where you're going wrong. I mean, did you ever have anything personally in your cricket career where a coach or a mentor...
I wanted it.
You actually
I wanted it. I don't know what you think here, Rob, but the worst thing for me was no feedback. No feedback. I don't need to be told when I've done well. I know I've done well. In sports, measurable. What I didn't like is if a coach has got a problem with me or an issue, if he don't tell me, then I don't like that. Even now doing this musical, this Fat Friends, I hate it when you come off at the end and you've done a run through of the show and then you get your notes.
Yeah.
And some people don't like getting notes or criticised. I want everything. I would sooner get 100 than 1 or 2 or none.
Because you see that
I want to
criticism as
improve.
something you can work on.
I want to improve.
Better.
I want to be told. Even to the point of when we speak about mental health.
Yep.
The best thing for me was being told I had depression.
Yeah.
Because then I can do something about it. And that relates to everything in my life. I want to be told. I want to get better. I want to perform. And I've had coaches who did it. Bob Simpson was a coach at Lancashire, great Australian coach, took Australia from being a really bad team back in the 80s to a brilliant team.
Yeah.
And he changed the culture along with Alan Border. He sat me down in the dressing room at Old Trafford. He pulled me in one day, and it was a brief chat. He said, "Fred, you're a very, very bad word." And then I thought, wow, here we go. Yeah. And then he just unleashed on me. And I walked out of that room, half thinking, a bit unsure, but half thinking, well, I'm going to do something about that now. Yeah. And I had that off David Lloyd, off Bumble. Bumble used to tell me exactly what he thought. And I can relate to that. And I can't get my head around people who can't.
Do you remember what the actual criticism was? What did he pick up on?
I was a C-bomb. Yeah. Because he didn't think I was working hard enough. I wasn't pulling my weight. I was overweight. I wasn't fit. I was underachieving. And he just spelt it all out.
Was it right? Was he right?
I couldn't fault a word that came out of his mouth. Duncan Fletcher, this is where our relationship broke down a little bit. Tell me. Yeah. If you've got a problem, come and have it out with me.
I'm so glad you said that. I couldn't agree more. I think there's this phrase going around called snowflakes. People who can't take
Piers Morgan loves it, doesn't he?
I think he's right. You know, I'm going to mention him, and I'm sorry, but Ferguson gave a speech at the reopening of Salford Stadium the other day, and he said Eric Harrison was tough, but he created players with character who knew how to deal with adversity, because he would tell you if you weren't training hard enough. He would tell you if you weren't coming into the Cliff training ground without a professional attitude. There's a big load of scandals in Olympic sport at the moment where people who are carrying too many pounds have been told they're overweight, and they're like, oh, that's a very offensive thing to say. It's more offensive if you don't tell somebody they're carrying too many pounds. They get to the Olympic Stadium and lose, and they've just wasted 4 years of their life. Yep. I mean, obviously there's a balance somewhere, but I think we've gone way too far in trying to protect people from negative criticism when it can be a positive. It can tell you where you need to do things differently. Rob, what's the most powerful bit of criticism you've had?
Well, first and foremost, that game at the weekend, Huddersfield against United, the attitude of players, surely, that comes from within. I watched Huddersfield in the first 5 or 10 minutes. There had 2 players who got yellow carded. It was, wet conditions. They were smashing into tackles. And as somebody who played for the lesser teams in the Premier League against the big stars, you have to have a right attitude if you're going to win those games.
Yep.
If they have the same attitude as you, the opposition, then they're usually at the top of the league because of A, they have the right attitude, and B, they're better players. Mm-hmm. So if they're slightly down, then you think you've got half a chance here. But I'm not having people saying it's the manager's fault, because surely you have to motivate yourself and an attitude yourself. Yeah. This is what I don't get. If somebody kicked me, the next thing I'd be doing is going smashing into them back and thinking, right, I'm a better player than you. Yeah. I'd try to prove to people, even though I wasn't Steven Gerrard, Paul Scholes, the better players, that was my fire, my better to say, do you know what, I'm going to show up, I'm as good as you. Because if I can match you physically and for desire and for, all the horrible little piece of work, if I can match you in that, that's the least I can do. Yep. You might be able to do a trick, you might be able to you might be quicker than me. Mm-hmm. I can't deal with that. I can't deal with that. That's life. But if I can match you in everything that I've got my attributes, and then I lose, I can't do no more.
So you're with Mourinho then? They 100%. They deserved it.
100%. Why
shouldn't he be able to just say it? Why can he not criticise these players?
Mm-hmm. Of course he can. I watched that first half, and Huddersfield was quicker, they were stronger, they were flying the tackles, and it was the underdogs rose to the occasion. Yep. They were brilliant. Second half, when United, needed, the funny thing was, in an attitude, Mourinho's when a Mourinho side's been 2 goals down in the Premier League, they've never won. Yeah. So that is a question for another day.
That's interesting.
Why isn't a fantastic team when they're 2-0 down never come back and won a game?
Yeah.
But in terms of, I used to get hammered, and that inspired me. I'm with you. That even when I do this show and the shows I do now, I'll ring. My problem was, as a player, that I would ring too many people.
To get their feedback.
Yeah, I'd ring too many people. So, for instance, I'd ring never ring the manager. I'd ring the coach. I'd ring the fitness guy. I'd ring the newspaper reporter who's at the game. You know, how did I play? You know, because did I play well? I knew myself I had a good game, but the constructive criticism, what I can't accept is when people just hammer you for no reason. It's personal. That's ridiculous. And I have so many. That's just nonsense. That's just lazy.
Yeah, but you get more. You get so much that you do not deserve.
Yeah.
I'm laughing as I say it.
I mean, some he does, but yeah.
Some I do. Some I do.
We all do, but some of it is just pathetic.
Yeah, pathetic.
It really is.
So the criticism Martin O'Neill when he said about I had no ability, which was tongue in cheek on the telly, and then I wanted to prove him wrong. But other people, I remember at half time.
But do you know what, Martin O'Neill with you there?
Yeah.
Is that just clever management?
Clever.
Clever management. He knew what you was about.
He knew exactly that would fire me up and say, I'm going to prove him wrong. And I'd get aggressive with myself. And, I can't wait for training. I'm going to go and smash into people. Yeah. I know I use the word smash into people. I don't mean like just go and kick people all over the place. I mean, in their faces. And, you know, and I do that in training. I want to be the best trainer. And I wasn't great. But if somebody told me constructively, you're not good at this, I'd try and get better.
Yeah.
And why can't these players of this day and age not accept it? Is there too much money? You know, we can go about these young kids now. You know, they all wear these spiky Christian Louboutin shoes for 400 quid. They've got Louis Vuitton wash bags. They've got Range Rovers. This is about, seriously. I'm going off one here. I'm seriously. I'm looking at.
Joseph fake one. Joseph fake one.
But I'm seeing it now, man. Honestly, I'm seeing it now. We're talking about attitudes.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And I'm seeing it now. You know, it's all about attitude. And why can't these?
I've got a theory. I've got a theory on it. I really have.
Uh-huh.
I've got a theory. I think I've alluded to it in a previous podcast, but I think because now, and I've seen a taste of it, football academies, cricket academies, school, the way in which kids are schooled and brought up, everything's nice. Yeah. Everything's lovely. Let's do everything for these young lads. We want to make them into footballers. We want to make them into cricketers. And we'll take away all the stuff which life throws at you.
Yes.
Which actually shapes you. All the bad stuff, all the experience you gain through booking your own travel, by paying your own gas bill. This is life, but everything's taken away from a kid. And I think at times we're growing up in a culture where let's take the positive out of everything, even in the worst scenario, even when you've done badly. Oh, we can't say that to our poor little Johnny. Let's focus on the good things. Yeah. He's got 3% in a maths test. Let's not talk about 97%. Yeah. Let's talk about that one question he got right. No, let's not do that. Let's be realistic. Just let me finish. Yeah. And then as they move on and move on and move on, they get to a point, for instance, Man United against Huddersfield. Huddersfield, by no stretch, are as good a football team, in my limited knowledge.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
But what they've got is they've got this fire about them. They know United are coming. We're going to kick them. We're going to be physical. We're going to move them around. We're going to make it uncomfortable for them. Because these lads don't experience that. It's not their fault. Yeah. Where do they go? And I've seen it with other kids. If you're always winning, always told how good you are, always had things done for you, all of a sudden, if that's challenged, what is your default position? Where do you go? What do you do? They don't know.
You know, I agree with absolutely everything there. And I think, you know, the theory you've just described, it tallies with everything we're learning in psychology. There's something called the self-esteem movement, where you want to build the self-esteem of young people, telling them how great they are, how wonderful, focusing only on their successes, never talking about anything negative. And the idea is they'll have so much self-esteem, they'll be able to do anything. What actually happens? They think they're wonderful, they think they're marvellous, and they hit one difficulty, one setback, one challenge in the real world, one failure, and they fall apart. Oh my God, I'm not as good as I thought I was. We don't want young people with self-esteem that is fragile, that's brittle, that they can't deal with anything. We want people with resilience who can face up to the setbacks that are inevitable in life. If you want to achieve anything great, you have to have the occasional setback, the occasional difficulty. It's what happens when you're in a competitive environment. And I think we protect people and wrap them in cotton wool. We're not giving them what they need to deal with the real world. I mean, obviously there's a balance. It doesn't mean that you hammer people and beat them up against the wall.
Just be honest.
Yeah, honesty, exactly.
I think that's what Mourinho's done here.
Frankness.
Yeah, I think that's what's missing. You know, I think looking back at my career, I was at my worst when I was most successful. When I got to the top, I was at my worst because I was a bit bored. And then I'd jump off a cliff almost, and I'd get back. My career,
the desire would come back.
It rock bottom so many times through my career. And then once I got my head around it, that's actually when I'm at my most dangerous. When everyone's writing me off, when everyone's saying how bad I am, this is when I come into my own. Yeah. I used to love that piecing back together. I used to love the rise to the top. Yes. And I'm not saying I needed any more motivation because I love what I was doing, but I would lie. I'd be lying in saying that when people told me how bad I was, when people wrote me off saying I can't do this, can't do that, even now in some of the things the positions I put myself in, this musical, for instance, this is when I'm at my most dangerous, is when people are telling me you cannot do something. It's, hang on a minute, of course I can. Yeah. But when I get there, I think, oh, well, it was like
a derby. It was like a derby, Matthew. I'd come back from my broken leg, and when I moved to Derby, it was like, why we signed him, and that was the occasion I went on the messaging boards, which he said in the previous series. And I was awful. I was hopeless. People saying I was finished. People saying my legs had gone, and inside me, I thought, you know what? I'm not finished yet. It's not my time to finish. I'm going to prove people wrong. And I was turning up onto the pitch. I was training with the kids. I was going to training when the first team had days off, and this was it. This was my end. And I was saying, no, this is where, I totally agree with Fred, this is where I'm going to show people I've still got something left. And I got back in the side when Nigel Clough took over as manager, and we played in a game, I think it was Manchester United at home, we lost 1-0, and I had man of the match, and the Derby crowd started singing there was only one Robbie Savage, which was a bit bizarre, but at that moment, I felt like saying, put me two fingers up to everybody and say, I told you. Yeah. I told you. And it was such a satisfying moment that I got hammered criticism, which was probably right because I thought my legs had gone. But I thought, you know, I'm just going to fight for it and show character. But
just picking up on what Fred said about it being honest and frank. If you get that on Twitter or anywhere else, you think, yeah, I know what you're saying. That wasn't as good as column as it might have been. That podcast could have been a bit better or whatever. It's helpful. The only time I find it difficult is when it's kind of very personal. It's nothing about how you could improve. It's just telling you how horrible you are as a person. But that doesn't give you anything to work with. There's no raw material there.
But then I think about that and I think, you know what? It's probably some bloke sat at home with a load of cats. Right, and he's eating a Karamak and a pot noodle. And
Karamak,
they were good. They were good.
And he's swigging on a bottle of Tizer. And he thinks, you know what? I'm just going to have a go at someone here. Yeah. And I feel more for that person doing that.
That's a good attitude. In fact, but talking of unfair criticism, when it's not been legitimate, hasn't been honest, or it hasn't been something that you felt was just. Have you had anything like that, Fred?
Unfair criticism. Loads. You know, I'm not going to lie. A lot of the criticisms I got as a player were deserved. And some of the things I did off the field, probably were deserved as well. And some of them got me a few jobs, so I'm not going to change them. But there's been a couple of times. One which stands out when you mentioned that was, I remember I got in the England side and I was becoming quite an established player. And we played, I think it might have been, 2001 maybe, 2002. I don't know the dates. We're playing against India in a test series, one-day series, and playing a game for Lancashire. I felt my groins had been building up, and this was in May. And I came off, and the physio, Dave Roberts, one of my great friends, he said, I think you've got double hernias. This was May, beginning of May. I said, all right. He said, what does that mean? He said, well, you get away playing for a while, but it's going to catch up on you. Yeah. So I went to England, and then said to him, look, I've got this problem with my groins. He thinks it's double hernia. He said, nah, it'd be fine. So carried on playing. And then about July, then they diagnosed it as double hernias. Right. So I'm struggling. I'm on injections. I'm on painkillers. I'm getting through. And I played through till September. The last test match.
You played through with a double hernia?
From May to September.
Wow.
So the last test of the series was against India at Edinburgh. We needed to win. I got 2 ducks and I didn't get any wickets. I turned up to the test match 3 days before. I didn't even take any kit. I just got in car just to turn up and say I'm going home. So I turned up, no kit. I borrowed Army's kit to do warm-ups and everything. And then they come over and says, "Are you going to play this week?" I says, "Well, I can't move." And they said, "No, we'll sort that out. We'll look after you. We'll jab you up and that." So I said, "Fine." So all that's gone on. We didn't win, and moving on. We was going to Australia that winter in November.
Yeah.
So I've got to now I've had my operation. They want me fit to go to Australia in November. I turn up. The first session we have, they're all gone on warm-ups. And I've started walking around the ground because I've been told I can't run. They know I can't run. I get pulled in Duncan Fletcher's office. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I've had hernias. I can't run." He says, "Yes, but when they said you can't run, I didn't know they couldn't run." I said, "Well, running's that thing where when you move quicker, 2 feet are off the ground at the same time. I can't do it. I can't do it." So they kept me on tour. We played first test Brisbane. Nasser Hussain wins the toss at Brisbane and bowls. So I get brought. I can field slip. I can't run, but I can field slip. So Simon Jones busts his knee. I go on a field slip. We don't have slips for very long because we're getting smashed. I then get put on the boundary. Matthew Hayden hits one up in the air. If I'm fit, I get this ball. But I'm like trotting after this ball. Nasser Hussain throws his cap, sends me off. So I get sent off the ground.
Really?
Yeah. They keep me on tour for ages, and we're getting beat every week. We're just getting hammered by every team we play against. And I'm just a tourist here. I'm just going round. So I don't know what happened. Duncan pulls me in the office, decides to let me know what he thinks of me, which I knew that anyway.
And what was he saying?
Well, he criticises me for not being fit, not being this, that and the other. And I was resorted to tears, actually. It was before a team meeting.
Really?
Because you can have a go at me for a lot of things. Have a go at me for drinking, have a go at me for going out, have a go at me for doing all this, but do not have a go at my intentions and attitude and trying.
And you're playing through a double hernia all the way
summer,
through that period.
And I couldn't get fit. So he then decides he's going to send me home, which is fine. I wanted to go home anyway. So we have a team meeting straight after a bollocking. I'm sat in his team meeting like Stevie Wonder. I've got dark glasses on because my eyes are all bloodshot and I've been crying.
Really?
And I got sent home. Rooster, Dave Roberts, I mentioned, amazing man. He got me fit mentally, physically and everything. Went back and then played the one days at the end of the series. But when you talk and then the World Cup after, which I did all right in. But then talking about, you know what, getting criticised for things, and that really burnt me ass.
Wow.
How did you repair the relationship with Duncan?
It was never repaired. It was never.
That was it.
It was the relationship with me and Duncan was. It wasn't always bad, and to say he didn't help me through my career would be a lie because I think my best years for England was with him. I wouldn't say because of him, but maybe despite him. Yeah. But he did help me at certain times, and when I was playing well, he'd talk to me. And we was all right. When I wasn't playing particularly well, it was almost as if I'm the reason why the team were getting beat.
But he gave you the silent treatment.
Oh, yeah, not just me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk ill of him, but we had a shocking relationship. Well, that's one thing that really stands out with Burn.
You know, so going back to Fred about criticism,
just on Duncan, I don't want to make this, because I mentioned him quite a bit. I don't want to make this about him and Duncan because I've got no problem with him. Yeah. And like I said, I had my best years playing under him, despite this fractious relationship. Yeah. And I reckon, you know what, I'd like to see him now.
And talk about it. Be interesting to hear his point of view because I wonder whether...
Can we not get him on as a guest?
You won't get a word out.
But maybe the medical staff didn't give him enough information about how much you were struggling.
But you can't run. Means you can't run.
Yeah, but it just doesn't make any sense.
I was doing my rehab at gym with Darren Goff. Goff was taking me rehab for me. It was weird.
You know, on that, so about criticism, and I'm with Fred that I could take all the criticism in the world if it was fair. And talking about hernias, when I moved to Blackburn, in about my third or fourth game, we played Norwich. We won 3-0. I went into the corner and I went into a tackle, won the ball, the crowd got up, and I felt something go in my groin. Anyway, the next day I woke up, it was a bit sore. Anyway, you've got tendons on your from your groin which go onto your hip bone. And anyway, I ended up having a tenotomy.
What?
A tenotomy. So what they do is, so for instance, listen, so it's true. So near your scrotum bag. Is that the word?
Your scrotum bag? Is that a medical thing? A scrotum bag?
Well, you know what I mean.
What's that in Latin?
Ball bag, innit? Yeah.
Say it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can.
The producer's saying, move on.
No, listen, it's true. So anyway, right, the groin there, you've got a tendon, which when you run, it moves up and down.
Yep.
So what I'd done was, this was really hurting me. Anyway, the physio at Blackburn was amazing, Dave Fever. And because I was a bit of a hypochondriac, and because I was a bit, oh no, I'm going to be out for ages, I played through it. And I remember in training, it come to a point when I couldn't move. Yep. But in my head, I was taking painkillers, I was taking this, and I was getting criticised off the fellow professionals. Yep. I remember Brad Friedel. So he threw a ball out, and I didn't trap my runner because I couldn't. And he absolutely hammered me. And I was thinking, I can't move. Yeah. I can't move. And I was saying to everybody, I need an operation. Something's not right. Anyway, they said, go rest over the summer. Mm-hmm. But I was on holiday and I knew it wasn't right. So I had to phone up the manager. I phoned him up and said, I need an operation. I've got to go in because I know come back, it won't be right.
Yep.
So I phoned up the physio, phoned up the doctor. They put me into to the surgeon. And when he opened me up, I had a huge piece of grit in between the tendon and the bone, which was rubbing.
Wow. Grit in your ball bag?
No.
What have you been doing? You've lost me here. What have you been doing?
In the tendon. So when your tendon moves on your bone, I had a huge piece of grit. So every time I run, it was like a burning, horrible sensation. Therefore, I knew the criticism which they were giving me was my own fault because I knew I was injured. I couldn't move. So that criticism really hurt me, and I was going home every night so frustrated because I knew if I was fit and I was firing all cylinders, I wouldn't be getting that questioned off my teammates.
And don't you think this is a bit that the fans don't see? They don't know what you're going through behind the scenes. They don't know the injury you're carrying. They don't know the pain you're experiencing. And they think, this person over here, he's not running fast enough or he's not warming up properly. Or they don't know about the bit of grit. It's not funny, but the bit of grit in your scrotum.
It's when I broke my neck.
Near it. Anyway.
Your neck?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's when I broke my neck playing for Birmingham. And I played with that for 6-7 weeks.
Broken neck.
Look at the scar there.
Yeah, bloody hell.
Oh, gosh. What? So you did?
Yeah, look there, the scar. So basically, it's all criticism. I wasn't right. I was playing with it.
Yeah.
Do you know on that tour of Australia, right? They tried everything to get me fit and it wouldn't work. They injected everything in me.
Did you resent this, by the way, that you were being put through so much rehabilitation and quite intrusive?
But do you know the worst thing about it is that if I tell you I'm hurting,
you're hurting.
I'm really hurting. Right. I'm not here. I don't want to rub. I don't like being rubbed, and I don't like being.
Unless you had Viagra.
Yeah, then it goes up. I don't like being fluffed. If I'm telling you I'm hurting, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
They tried to get me fit, and they tried everything, and then I was in Tasmania, and then they come up with this new thing, and they say. It's a pubis symphysis.
Oh, that's...
It's not when plants go towards the light.
It's in between, isn't it?
Yeah, it's above your willy, right? Where you...
It's medical truth.
There's like the bone and there's a hole on your pelvis.
Uh-huh.
And what they said was we can inject through there and inject some painkiller into your pubis symphysis to see if it works. So I'm thinking, well, you've tried everything else. Go on, then. So I've been told this is going to work. I go in this room in Tasmania in hospital, and I'm led on this bed, and I've got this towel over me. In comes this little Chinese doctor and 2 nurses, and he says, right, he gets this needle out, and it's a big needle, and I'm thinking, where's he going to put that? So he moves the towel. Right, so I'm there, and I've got meat and 2 veg out on this table. There's 2 nurses. Don't get me wrong, I'm slightly nervous.
Yeah.
So
was it cold as well?
Oh, it was. I said to the nurses, I said it's usually bigger than this, but I'm really nervous. Right? It was like an innie. It was like going in. It was like a shiitake mushroom. Right? So he's then started putting this needle in, and I'm thinking he's going to stop. And at this point, my balls have recoiled as well. It's like there's almost nothing there. I'm like a Ken doll. Right? And his foot, this thing, he's injected me. And I let out the biggest scream of my life. And he said, has the anaesthetic worked yet? I'm thinking, I don't think so, mate. I don't think so. Goes, and that's what they tried. And that didn't work. They tried everything.
And was the injection like unbelievably painful? I mean, that sounds horrible. Such a sensitive.
Horrific. Anybody speak to anybody who's had that, it's horrific.
But isn't it interesting? Looking back, you think, why would you want to go through it? But I played Australian Open 1998. Don't hammer me for table tennis story.
Come on.
So I got through the first round.
Yeah,
exactly. She's listening.
Sorry, Dillis.
Yeah. And I was playing Peter Carlson, Swedish guy, top 10 of the world, but I knew I had a chance to beat him. And I had a massive, unbelievable pain in my foot. And the physio tried everything. It was at the Melbourne Sports and Aquatic Centre, beautiful venue. And they said, there is one possible way you might be able to play. We could give you a local anaesthetic straight through the base of your foot, the sole of your foot, which is a really sensitive part of the body. And I was on in like an hour and a half. And I said, won't it numb the whole of my leg? How will I be able to move? They said, we're going to make it very local to that bit of the foot. Got to tell you, lying on that couch and then a doctor coming out with this long needle, I just closed my eyes and I thought, you go through a lot, don't you, to try and reach the top in sport. You do have tough times. And I thought, you know what, it's going to be 5 seconds of excruciating pain, but it might give me a chance to win. I played. First game, I couldn't feel my foot. I lost.
I couldn't feel my feet more Saturdays.
Go with the injecting yours.
But then I went 2 down, came back and won 3-2. But it's fascinating, this, just going through all of this.
I know we got off subject a little bit, but it's like when I was playing for Birmingham at Charlton, and I've gone up for a header, and I've landed on my arms. Like, you know, when you stop yourself.
Yeah.
And there was this big shudder through my body, right? And I've gone off afterwards. I've played the last half an hour, and I've said to the physio, I've got pins and needles in my arms. I said, you know, like you keep scrunching your hands together. Anyway, I lay on the bed. The doctor come in, and he said, you've jarred your nerve. Mm-hmm. So I thought, right. Anyway, when I look back now, it's so frightening, and I can't believe, you know, I've not spoken about this, have I, before?
No.
Anyway, it was in my book. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I've said.
So no one's seen it.
He's not a pussy. Val will be on to you. Val listen to this. That's my brother. Val's going to send me a text. So anyway, the Monday, I've gone into the training ground and said, "These pins and needles. I was struggling to put my hands in cold water." And they said, "You've jarred a nerve." At this minute, I was lying back on the physio table, and the physio would get my head in his hands, and he'd like,
oh, wow, thanks. You said hands.
Yeah. Right? And he'd
everyone just went,
and he'd click it, and it was like, you know, like a chiropractor, and it would click. So I'd go out to training, but this pins and needles never went away, and I would get, but my neck, no pain in my neck. It was just pins and needles down both arms. Anyway. This is true. So 6 weeks, end of the season, I had this pins and needles, but I thought it's a jarred nerve. That's what I was told. Therefore, I was going to be fine. The summer 6 weeks off. Nerves take ages to repair. Yeah. I thought, right. So we had a testimonial game at Cardiff. We were playing against Cardiff, testimonial for some guy. After that, we were off for 6 weeks.
Yep.
In the warm-up, you imagine this, and it's horrible. In the warm-up, and it's not an exaggeration, I was just getting ready to play. And I think it was Damien Johnson just come behind me and like jokingly nudged me in the back. Yeah. I fell to the ground and I couldn't feel my body for 20 seconds.
No.
On my kid's life. I could not feel my body for 20 seconds.
Kind of paralysis.
I couldn't move. I could not move.
Was you trying to move?
Trying to move. I couldn't move. So I've got up and honestly... what's that? You never seen that advert, Mr. Soft? That Mr. Soft, and he was
it's for mince, isn't it?
Mince, yeah. It was like I was like my legs were wobbling, and I've gone into the changing room, and I said to the physio, "Not being funny, not going to believe this. Remember, I was a bit of a hypochondriac." I said I couldn't move for 20 seconds. He was like, "Yeah, all right, go and play the first half."
No.
Played the first half, and then this pain now in my arms.
Is it the best game you've ever had? Robbie's moving more.
Maybe not. Oh, it's in a bad mood today, yeah. Anyway. You know Robbie, yeah? A friend is.
I'm just sticking up for Matthew. So anyway,
I'm on the bus going back. I said, listen, I'm going away tomorrow for 6 weeks. I need to go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. I can't put up with this pain anymore. It's horrific pain in my arms. So I go in the scanner. So they put me into the Birmingham hospital. I'm in a scanner.
What, like MRI?
MRI scanner. And you can when you've got these headphones on in a scanner and it's going...
Them really tight tubes.
Yeah, them tight tubes.
It's claustrophobic, isn't it?
Yeah, tape your nose down.
You're enjoying this, aren't you?
Matthew said to me before, "I give Robbie some. I'll get it next
Why
week."
isn't he getting it?
No, it's fair. I mean, did they?
Yeah, so anyway, you know what? So you can see the glass.
Yeah.
Where the people are doing the scan, and I knew something was wrong. Anyway, as the bed comes out of the MRI scan, it was like
because they were sort of discussing it.
I could see. Yeah. It was like, right, you've got to stay there. So basically, I was then told that I had a C5, I think it is. It was the disc was 70% in my spinal cord.
So how long had that been going on for?
6 weeks. So the disc,
if they hadn't done it, what would have happened?
So the doctor said to me, the doctor who I believe saved my career, I think his name was Mr. Jakowski, I think.
Jakowski?
Jakowski.
I know him.
Yeah, he's a surgeon.
Yeah, because he said to me...
Yeah, surgeon.
He said to me years ago, because I was having back problems, and he scanned me, and he said, your tailbone hasn't fused.
Right.
I says, has it not? Right. He said, do you wet the bed? Seriously? I said, well, I did wet the bed till I was about 13 or 14. And then if I have too much to drink now, I'll wet the bed. And he said, that's because your tailbone hasn't fused. I said, well, that's great, but how's that going to help me bowl?
No,
and he wanted to...
Jackabout, yeah. So he said that it was 60...
I don't wet the bed now, we'll just get out.
Yeah.
My disc was 60 to 70% of my spinal cord.
So it could have severed your spinal cord.
So he said, one more blow, and that could have been it.
It's just unbelievable.
So I had the operation, so they kept me in, I was in intensive care. They went through my neck there, took the bone from my hip, fused it in C5. So now, look, my movement of my neck's really, really... poor. So I know we'd have something. But this is what you put yourself through, Matthew, to play to be the best you can. And
so you broke your neck.
Well, yeah.
You've not broke it, but you.
So it's not broke. But
was there any fear that if you got a knock, you won't be able to walk?
He said to me, if you get before it was done, if I'd have gone away and then come back and not had the operation and I got whacked, that'd
have been it.
That'd been it.
But
but
then the operation, was there any fear if you got it wrong?
No, fine. Fine.
No, but because when they're working around there, they say if they nick something.
Yeah, but they tell you that they go in the neck, and so it's quite a big scar.
Yeah.
But this is the thing: athletes go through, and people don't. You might be off one day, but these are the things that people don't realise that you might be playing with this thing. You might be not right for so many different reasons.
Yeah. Just to get back on track about unfair criticism, the one thing that really bothered me so much was Steve Armisen. You know, Steve Armisen, all the way through his career, when we talk about mental health and depression and struggling with things, and I saw him go through it every day, and I saw him get a kicking in the press. I saw teammates having a go at him, and that sort of thing would not happen now. But that really hurt and upset me. And I suppose in some ways, it didn't allow me to talk about how I was feeling, and possibly people like Marcus Trescothick as well, who then just had a complete break. He just happened so fast and disappeared out of the way. But bear in mind, Steve Armisen had been going through that for probably 8 years beforehand, and nobody took the time, or they just hammered him. So there's two sides of criticism for me. Where Mourinho, I think he's well within the rights.
Yeah.
But in other instances, like we've just spoken about,
can be deeply unfair.
Yeah.
Fascinating topic. That. Should we go on to the next one?
Can I have a quick wee?
Yeah.
It's not your tailbone, is it?
I don't know, but this chair might need washing.
5 Live Breakfast.
What a roll call. Michelle Dignan, Sean Farrington, Simon King, George Riley, Rachel Burton.
Great memory, Nicky, there.
It's written down. They aren't merry across the Mersey, are they? No? They like that?
Bit early on a Monday.
It's quite good, actually.
Is it?
I do like it.
Okay.
Nicky just said, don't leave the studio, I've got a really good thing to say. And that was it.
It was a good quality sports headline.
Morning, George.
Good morning, Rachel. Good morning, all.
Good morning, welcome.
Let's bring you up to date with the news headlines then.
Wake up to all the latest news, sport, travel and weather.
5 Live Breakfast. Weekday mornings from 6.
So, friends, back with us. Next topic. Fans, some pundits have been talking about whether this Man City team could become one of the great sides ever to grace the Premier League. So let's discuss what are our nominations for the greatest team ever in any sport.
What we're talking about, not a combined team.
No.
An actual team who've played.
And shall I still kick this one off?
I
think the All Blacks is a good contender for this. They've got the best winning percentage.
The current one? Or...
No, one All Black team. I mean, to be honest, in that case, it's been so good for such a long time.
Yeah.
You could pick out almost any All Black team from almost any decade since 19 whatever, and it would have been one of the best ever. But if I had to go for one, for the beauty that they brought to football, for the stellar lineup of talent, and I'm not talking about United under Ferguson, don't worry. I think Barcelona under Guardiola in particular were absolutely unbelievable. Since Iniesta started playing regularly in the first team in 2004-05, they've won the La Liga 8 times, Copa del Rey 5, Super Cup 7, European Cup 4, Iniesta 31 trophies, but that Barcelona side had a core Spanish lineup that also won the European Championships in 2008 and 2012, the World Cup in 2010. And I think the match they played against Madrid in 2010 November, they won 5-0. I think it's the most complete performance of any football team I've ever seen. Possession, the confidence on the ball, they would pass their way out of tight corners. And I'll give you the lineup quickly. Valdez, Alves, Puyol, what an
it's like the
fantastic
Chipmunks,
player.
this. Alvin and the Chipmunks. What's going on? Alves, Alves, Theodore, and who? Are you making these names up?
Valdez, Alves, Puyol, what a titan he was at the heart of defence. Piqué, Abidal, Busquets, one of the most underrated players ever. Xavi, Iniesta, Pedro, Messi, and Villa. And it's similar to the team that beat United in the 2011 Champions League final. What
Messi.
a match that was.
I
Brilliant.
was there for that.
Absolutely brilliant.
I went to watch that.
No.
The Champions League final when they beat United.
Yeah.
I went, yeah.
Rooney scored, didn't he?
I got invited by Richard Bevan, who used to run PCA cricket. Now he's managers.
Yeah, League Managers Association.
And he got asked, and we went out all day, and I got in about 4:30 in the morning. I was living down south. And the missus says, "You're back late?" I says, "Yeah, it was a late kick-off."
Shut up.
For Spanish TV.
Did you get away with it?
Do you know what? Yeah, I did. But do you know what? I remember that game watching it. And United were a good side, weren't they?
Yeah.
But even as a layman, don't know much about football, you could see.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful.
Messi scored a header in the other final against Man U, didn't he?
2009.
He scored a header in that game, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was the 2009 final, wasn't it? But
Can I ask
they're
you a
beautiful.
question about that team?
Yeah.
Right. This is one thing which I've never quite understood about managers in football, is that they always get sacked and they always get criticised for what they do. And I think, you know what, the players should be more accountable. But then you look at that team, and then you talk about the way in which City are playing now and starting to play after Pep Guardiola has been there, it was over a year, nearly 2 years now. How much is down to, obviously you rhyme all them names off, and a couple I've heard of, but I'm sure they're very good players. How much is down to Pep Guardiola as a manager and an ethos of how he wants to play, and how much is down to this amazing group of players?
I think that's really, really difficult to unravel, the combination of the two, because they are fantastic players. He inherited an amazing team, but he also took it to another level. I said in the last podcast, I thought Guardiola was overrated, and a lot of people found that very, almost offensive, that this guy, this artist, who so creatively shaped Barcelona and now Manchester City in an exciting way, how can you be so pejorative about him? My honest opinion is that he is a good manager, a great manager, but sometimes we think that it's almost that he created the team, and he definitely didn't.
But you spoke about how they played and how they played from the back and how they passed.
Yeah, beautiful.
Is that the players or the manager? I don't know.
But remember, these players, the majority of them came through La Masia. Is that how you pronounce it? The academy at Barcelona.
He doesn't know, does he? Never heard of it.
He's looking...
He's thinking you're talking about the life of Brian. Hey... The Messiah. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
Hey, did I tell you? I met.
That's a great film.
Oh, brilliant! What a film that is. That was
one of my favourite films.
Yeah, me too. Brilliant.
There's a storm called Bright, isn't it?
That wasn't quite as good a contribution.
It's a tenuous link. That Rob will have it.
There's Storm Brian.
But the possession that they played, I think, was largely a consequence of the way they were trained through the youth academy. You know, they did the what do you call it, the rondo a lot, but they did a lot of other sort.
The what? The rumba? Run strictly now.
And they developed the ability, particularly Xavi and Iniesta, but Busquets too. Messi was at the academy, so they developed the skills that you need in order to control and pass and perceive the patterns of players around you in order to, you know, play possession football. I think Guardiola added a couple of ingredients, but he wasn't fundamental to the skill that they had. But the way he shaped it was.
But
was
joking
very
aside about the class of '92, it sounds very similar to what happened in that. How much were the players and how much were the...
The difference there, though, there's a massive difference in that Guardiola inherited this academy that had been created partly by Cruyff, but a long tradition at Barcelona. The Manchester United academy at the Cliff, you know, it was Ferguson, I think, who hired Eric Harrison. It was him. In his first day at United, he went to see Martin Edwards and Maurice Watkins, the lawyer, and they said, "What are you going to be doing tomorrow?" He said, "Forget tomorrow. I'm looking to the future. I want to build the foundations." He was always looking to the youth. So I think Ferguson should take credit for the class of '92 in a way that Guardiola perhaps not. For
So your greatest team is Barcelona.
Yeah.
What year?
I would go 2010.
Right, Fred? Greatest ever team. I've got a strange one. Go on.
You go. I've got to
think
think.
of footballers as well.
All right, then. Cricket, cricket, isn't it, for me?
Yeah.
And I think there's only two to pick from. One is the Australian team of the late 90s up until they were knocked off the perch momentarily in 2005, but then came back just a year later.
Yeah.
When you look at that side, you had
Brilliant.
Langer and Hayden opening the batting, Ricky Ponting number 3,
Fantastic.
Martin 4, then Hussey came in at number 5.
Yep.
Mike Hussey.
Or Mike Hussey or Michael Clark.
Yeah.
Then you had Gilchrist.
Brilliant.
Unbelievable. Coming in at number 7. Warren, McGrath,
Wow.
Lee, and whoever else they wanted to pick. So that to me was a great team. But I reckon Gillespie in his pomp, he tailed off probably 2005 onwards in his pomp, brilliant. But then they were a good team, but I can't name the great West Indian teams of the early 80s.
What a team that.
Marshall, Garner.
You had Richards, Haynes
in Greenwich.
Clive Lloyd maybe just before that, and Gus Logie and all these guys.
Jeff Dujon and Wiki.
Richie Richardson.
Yeah, amazing.
What a team.
Used to wear
floppy out when he batted. Towards
out.
the end of his career, though, he didn't fancy it and put an helmet on. But I'm not going to hold it against him.
Michael Alden.
A bit earlier. But the team about the West Indies was different. Everyone now talks about England, Australia, the Ashes. It was West Indies were the tide to beat, and England came nowhere near beating them. They were unbelievable. And the thing about them which made them better was I think they were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Where they were a team where...
Interesting.
You looked at them, they were physically bigger, they were physically stronger. When cricketers historically weren't particularly fit and muscle-bound and had physiques, you look at the West Indies, they were different to everyone else. They were strong, they could bowl faster. The batsmen had more flair, they had more ability or more self-belief. And I think that's what made them better than everybody else in the world.
I think honestly, the debate about Australia versus the West Indies, those two teams, is an interesting one because it's about so many different things, which we'll come back to. I just wanted to ask you quickly on any of the players that you met from that West Indies lineup. You mentioned you met Richards in the last series. Was anyone else that you've met or who influenced you in any way, or any of the Australians in that iconic team that you guys beat in 2005. Let me just give you some stats to show how unbelievable that series was. The Australian side of the 2000s, between October 1999 and November 2007, they played 93 tests. They won 72. That is absolutely mind-boggling.
2005 Ashes.
Yeah, exactly. These guys, they played out only 11 draws in 93 games, which is incredible. And in 28 series, they won 24 and lost and drew 2 each. One of them was the iconic 2005 series. That, I think, is a tribute to one of the most extraordinary victories a home nation's had in the history of our sport, I think.
It was, but going into it, I don't know if we thought we could beat them. But getting back to the previous topic, which fuels it, is people saying you're not going to beat these.
That helped.
I got to admit it. Yeah. That's what fueled it. And that side were unbelievable. When you played against some of them, and I look at my life and career after 2005, I've got a lot to thank that team for. because one, having the opportunity to play against them, beating them changed my life in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it's life-changing on so many fronts. It's not just a sporting front, but I go and work in Australia now.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed to say it. It's off the back of that. There's
On a
no
BAFTA.
two ways about it.
Yeah.
BAFTA, Logie, you know, name them. NBA, I'm not going to list them. 3 areas. But, yeah, to have the chance to play against that side, and you look at it, and you look at a career, and you think the high points, and there've been a few, but one, having the opportunity to play against the best and beating the best,
Of that Australian team, if you had to pick out one player who was the most significant part of that team in terms of what you brought to the entire dynamic, the intimidatory effect, because I've got a few thoughts on who that might be, but who do you think?
It's hard to pick one, isn't it?
Right.
Because you see Ricky Ponting, and he's like a leader of men, unbelievable as a batsman, the best. I'm biased towards Tendulkar because I love him, but harder to bowl at Ponting. And he's a tough man. You know, he'd give you nothing, wouldn't look at you, wouldn't speak to you, just aggressive. Led his team. Shane Warne brings everything Shane Warne does. Amazing bowler, but that character, you almost don't play the man, play the ball. Don't worry about him, but it's hard not to. He lifted the team. And then I suppose the other one, which was the difference between winning the Ashes and losing them, was Adam Gilchrist.
Oh, what a player.
And I stumbled across a way of getting him out.
Go
on. Which was round the wicket, just nip it away from him.
When you say nip it away, what do you mean?
Off the seam.
Off the seam, reverse swing, take it away from him. Because I've never said this really, but everyone thinks I stumbled across it. And I did a little bit, because I bowled quicker around the wicket, because I get across my body and I could bowl faster to the left-hander.
The people who don't know about cricket, around the wicket is...
Well, you bowl, you're running and you bowl. So if I'm looking at the wickets from the top of my run-up, over the wicket is on the left-hand side, and the left-handers, they used to come to the right-hand side to take it away. But I also looked at Adam Gilchrist, the way in which he set up, where if I come on the other side, his bat had never come down straight, because he was facing the other way.
Yeah.
So there was a technical flaw which he had, which I exploited, but more through luck than judgment, because I preferred to bowl on that side. But we took him out of that series, and I think that was the difference of winning and losing it.
Because he was a wicketkeeper who averaged 50 with the bat.
Amazing. But the way in which he scored his runs took it away from you.
Yeah, that's
so
really
West Indies the best team.
By the way, just to put a bit of context on the West Indies, remember this is a number of different nations that were playing as the West Indies, a number of different islands that had different jurisdictions.
Barbados, Antigua, Nevis.
And for a long time, people were saying it's calypso cricket. They're not strong enough. They've not got the mental fortitude, and they don't have the identity. They're not a team. They're just a gang. And they went, I think, to Australia early 70s, and they were ripped to shreds by Lillian Thompson. And it was a really tough time. They lacked self-belief. And then Clive Lloyd, who you mentioned, who was the captain, he said, right, we've got to have a savage, tough bowling attack. And they really honed their skills. And I think it was a big part of how they developed self-confidence as a group of nations. They found that confidence through the success of the cricket team.
It's interesting. So Fred says the West Indies is the greatest ever side. And it's a topic for another day. There's a guy called Andrew who goes to our gym. He's a lecturer, a politics lecturer, and he listens to the show all the time. And he said, for the topic for another day, and for Fred, is they're on about bringing in 4-day test matches.
Yeah.
And I... As those Ashes,
Brilliant.
They all went to the last day, and the best Test match of the summer was when West Indies beat England and went to 5 days.
Yeah.
So it's another topic, another day, 4-day Test match.
Yeah.
We'll do it now if you want.
What?
But actually, well, let's save it.
No, do it really quick.
Oh, go on.
Yeah.
5 days, leave it 5 days. Not many go 5 days. If you need it, use it. Done.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That was quick. Good summit. So Andrew,
Andrew,
that was for you. Andrew, that was for you. Anyway, this might be a bit controversial, but
it's not Birmingham, is it?
Ooh, not far off. So the greatest ever side for me, and we're talking about on a year. So you can Barcelona, This team for me is the greatest ever side because I believe it's the greatest ever achievement. Leicester City. I've got. You can talk about your Barcelonas. You can talk about playing beautiful football.
I like that.
We can talk. We can talk about Brazil 1970.
Yep.
Unbelievable,
Brilliant.
unbelievable. We can talk about the treble Manchester United team. You can talk about the All Blacks. You can talk about for the greatest ever team to have the greatest ever achievement. It has to be Leicester City because everybody was saying they're not going to win it. I was even saying 3 weeks for they're not going to win it. For a group of players to play beyond themselves for 38 games.
It's amazing, isn't it?
For players who were released by other clubs, for players where transfer fees were like under £1 million, for players who were written off, for a manager who come there and galvanised them, and for the fact they become everybody's second favourite side. They were battering good teams. Everybody made excuses for the other sides. Well, it was a bad season. Everybody said everything went right for Leicester, injuries and no suspensions, all this. But for those players who now are probably where they are, they're a bottom half table Premier League side. They were in League One 3 or 4 years, so the Championship 3 or 4 years before. 5,000 to 1, they've won the Premier League. It'll never happen again because the other teams have gone, oof, hang on a minute. That has to be the greatest ever side. And people say I'm talking nonsense, and I use that word a lot. But I can't. They didn't have the flair. They didn't have the. When people say greatest ever sides, the All Blacks, of course, unbelievable. Barcelona, beautiful, panache, playing out from the back. This was a side who got the ball. They whipped it into the channel, and Vardy would score. Brilliant. It was simple, dynamic. Unbelievable. So for me, the greatest ever side.
Passionate about this, aren't you?
Yeah, it's a great shout as well.
The greatest ever side has to be 5,000 to 1 odds
for that period of time.
It's
almost we're not saying they're going to go down in history as the greatest ever team.
No, but for me,
for that period of time, Leicester City.
Yeah, and you could sort of say the greatest team in terms of raising their games above expectation. I don't think anyone's ever done anything even remotely comparable to it. Mike's shouting Nottingham Forest.
It's like winning Grand Prix with Fiesta, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, it is. Our producer just said Nottingham Forest back-to-back European Cups.
Not close to Leicester.
That's another debate for another show. Yeah. Nottingham Forest or Leicester City, because Brian Clough to win back-to-back European Cups, 1979-80, wasn't it? And that was a period when English sides won it for 4 or 5 years running. Liverpool, Villa, Nottingham Forest twice. And that's the debate, Nottingham Forest or Leicester City. But I've got to say, to go over 38 games and in the spending powers of the big six, whatever, for Leicester to upset it at all, I'm saying the greatest ever period, the greatest ever side, for me, Leicester City.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Thank you for listening. You can download the podcast for extended versions of all the topics we covered on this week's show at the 5 Live website and all the usual podcast places. Also, every show we've ever done to date, all the award-winning shows available to download there. Please use the hashtag FredSavSide to get in touch through the week. If you can leave a review on iTunes and give us a rating, we'd really appreciate it. We'll be back next week at the same time. For now, from all of us, goodbye.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Thank you for downloading the Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy podcast. If you like what you hear, then why not have a look at what else 5 Live podcasts have to offer at bbc.co.uk/5 Live.